somewhat in place. We're going to move them around. I'm going to center them a little bit lower and then, yeah, place them right about there. So let's pop over into this area, check out the buttons wrapper. So that's the local wrapper that's controlling it. And then I'm going to make it top maybe 60 rem and left. Let's see what this does. And I'll make this maybe 15 rem for width. Okay. Maybe I'll try this as a percentage. Let's see what happens if I do that. Cool. Try 40%. So we can see here, this is our example that we'll be working with. Every time I slide by it. There. I think that's a good spot. Then, what is this saying? It's saying we're going to begin by calculating your net worth. That looks kind of like an H1 to me. So the welcome page will begin with an H1. And maybe I won't even have to style it, but I'll just say we'll begin by calculating your net worth. Then I'm going to grab all these details, blah, blah, blah. And let's see, maybe that's an H2. And then let's get started. Will be another H1. Let's see how this works out. So we're going to have to do some display flex on that, but that might not be a problem. Let's see. Perfect. All right. Go into page here, and then I'm going to make it so right now, because I'd stolen it from earlier, it's set up as a grid template area, which I don't want. So I'm going to take all of this out, and I'm going to make it display. Actually, I do want the props for the base styles. I just realized. So what this is doing is it's giving it this centeredness as well as the white background, and just making sure that it has the same auto side on both sides. So that's helpful, but wait a second. Now that I just think about it, it is being rendered by a parent up here in the net worth, and this one is the one that's doing that. So disregard everything I just said. We don't want to keep that there. So back in the welcome page, we can clear all of this out, and that shouldn't cause a problem because its parent is positioning it for us. Yeah, perfect. And then we'll make it display flex. Flex direction will be column. And let's try space around. Oops. Justify content. Space around. And we're going to see how that works for the placement of things. Cool, that looks all right. I think I'd like to bring this in a little bit. It's a bit more square there. So I'm going to have to change that. If I just want to manipulate just this one, I'm going to make sure that I have styled components up there. And then often I'll just change it by creating a styled H2, but call it with a capital H. H2. And then I just know that it's like a local personalized styled H2 for this page. And so in this case, I'll just start by doing the width, as 30 rem. And we'll see if that achieves what I'm hoping for. Okay, and then we just want to make sure that everything is centered. So I'm going to go align items center. I always have so much trouble remembering how to center stuff. So we'll see here if this worked. Ooh, doesn't look very nice. And then I'm confused why it's sitting so far over to the left. I don't know if its width is not taking up the entire space. So I'm going to give it a width of 100%. And then I might have to change my space around, or my spacing, but so I'm going to give it a background of yellow to see why it's doing that. Okay, so that's weird. It should be filling out the entire space. Who is rendering it? Wizard is rendering it. And what is Wizard doing? Okay, I'm going to take all of this out. That's probably my problem. Yeah. So, so that's the problem with copying code. I'm sure that you guys have learned all this in with your school stuff, that you shouldn't just be copying other stuff. But I still have that problem. Now, why is that? So, page, which is in Wizard, is rendering welcome page. Welcome page is 100%. It's not wrapped in anything else. So I don't know why. Page, I'll make this width 100%. See if that fixes it. I often hope that you guys are watching this on double time or something, because I don't want to be wasting too much of your time with this. Okay, why is that not spreading out and filling the entire space? I don't know. Back into welcome page. This is width for column. It's not wrapped in anything. H2s, so it's just the page. So I'll go into here and make this one background red. See if I can see any red. A little bit of red, but it's not going. I'm going to go height 100%. Somehow it's... Oh, you know what? That's my problem. So in this area, it is conflicting because it wants to control this whole page with the grid template areas. So I need to think to myself, the wizard, so the problem is the page, which will end up being the final net worth section that looks kind of like this, it wants to control it by setting each of these into grid template areas. But then over here, this one conflicts a little bit by wanting to control the entire page and take up the entire thing. So what I'm going to do, I think I might maybe I should make these siblings, and then these rules won't apply to this one. So I'm going to do that. Now, one thing that you'll see me do quite often is I'll put these, I don't know if you guys have learned this yet, but it's called React Fragment. You can also write React Fragment, but React always wants everything to be controlled in a separate div, but sometimes you don't really want them to be in a separate div. So in this case, I don't want to create a div that will then render both of these. I just want them to be siblings. So we've got page, but then we've also got wizard. So then the trouble is, how do we know if we're going to be rendering the wizard or the page? So we've got our state here. I'm going to put it, I'll call this wizard, and I'll call this toggle wizard. And then what we're going to do is later on, we will come across some sort of indicator that tells us that the visitor who's visiting this, or who's coming to it, if it's their first time, if they've never been to this section before, then we'll get some state that will make sure that the wizard is being toggled and shown. And if they have been there before, then they're automatically going to see their net worth pop up. So there's different ways that we can do that, accessing the local JSON state usually. But we'll cross that bridge in a little later. For right now, I'm just going to say that wizard is visible. And so I'm going to use state true. So toggle wizard will then toggle between them. So then I might have a button in the main page that says take the walkthrough or take the tutorial again. And so then they could click that, reset the initial one, go back to the wizard, and walk through the wizard if they wanted to. So we've just made them siblings, and I'm gonna pop that here, and I'm gonna say if wizard is true, render wizard, else render page. Let's see, does that work? Yes, perfect. So now we're back over here. Perfect. Now that's where we want to grab these stylizations from here so that wizard also has these. So I'm going to get the base styles, pop over into wizard. Now you might remember these base theme styles are what's setting the centeredness of the page, and they're stored in the theme, which is in the style folder, and there's this object called theme. Perfect. Okay, so we want to take out these ugly colors. They were helpful to us though. And we're going to go into, where was it? Was it welcome page that I made yellow? Yes. Okay, and then we're just going to tighten that up a little bit, but we're making sure that we're on track here. Perfect. Okay. Now page, I want to set as a height. Let's try 60 rem. See what happens. Now, one thing that I've learned is I really want my heights to be in rems, not percentages, because if they're in percentages and you bring up the inspector, then everything squishes down and it's so annoying. So if I go like this, and if it's in percentages, then it all squishes together and it's not very helpful. So I'm going to open this up a little bit. It would be nice, you know, later once I was looking at styles to have some sort of like welcome graphic that looked really interesting. But for now, we don't have time for that. So it was the H2. We're going to open that up a little bit, make that a little wider. Now that's in the welcome page. Where did my H2 go? I'm going to delete all these. And the width, I'm going to make 45 rem. See how that looks. Cool. Okay. So I think that the person would see this. They'd be like, okay, we're calculating net worth. Your net worth, this is what it does. Let's get started. That's enough to be like, okay, I know what we're doing. I'm going to move those buttons a little bit over to the left. Where were my buttons? They were in wizard. Take these out too. Left, let's try 36%. And then because I set the rem at 10 pixels, I was able to create window listeners that change the size of everything. So it's got a little bit of resizing as the screen gets smaller, you'll see. So the page gets smaller. So it's a little bit responsive, which is nice. But basically what that means is you can still work with rem and not worry about it getting too big if the screen gets smaller. Cool. Okay, so I think that's about on track. I might move these over just a slight bit. Left 38%. Perfect. That looks good. So now what we want to do is have this button. If we press it, it's going to increase the number. So we can see that disappeared. That's because in the wizard, as you'll probably remember, if the count is 0, it's showing the welcome page. Otherwise, it's going to show nothing. So now we got to figure out, we want to create our super awesome page, which will have a title at the top explaining what the section is about, and then the dream situation is one component that rules them all, that we can reuse over and over, and is just used to gather the information. And I don't know if I'll be able to do that in one component, but we'll have a look and see. So I will call that. So initially, what I'm going to do is, let's go over here. I think I'll just build it individually so in this case, it'll be short-term assets. So I'll build a short-term asset component. And then as I build out maybe a long-term asset component, property component, I really don't want to have 6 different components. But if I did do that, at least I could get it working. And then later I could really try to think about how I could refactor them and make them all just one component. And so then in the dream scenario, here in my map, or no, in the wizard, I would have a map, and it would be mapping through data, which would be the data for each. So I'd have an array of data for each of the items or the topics, and then I would map through it and pass all the information specific to that topic into this component, this dream magic component that then renders everything pertaining to that. But it's hard to do that without knowing the structure of everything beforehand. So I kind of have to just build them one at a time and see how I'll do that. So I'm just going to start right now. I think I'll pause the video so that I don't have too long of videos, and then